Let me tell you something powerful. Your life doesn't change when you get more money, more time, or more opportunities. It changes the moment you decide to think differently. Most people are prisoners of their own thoughts. They live in cages built not of steel, but of stories. Stories they keep repeating. I'm not ready. It's too hard. It's not for me. But here's the truth. Your external world is nothing but a reflection of your internal world. You don't get what you want. You get what you believe. If you keep thinking the same way, you'll keep living the same way. Change your mind, and you literally rewire the direction of your destiny. And the best part, you don't need anyone's permission. Not your past, not your circumstances, not your mistakes. Just a single conscious decision that says, I will no longer think small. I will no longer accept average. I will no longer be at war with my own potential, because the moment you take command of your thoughts, you take command of your future. So today, right now, not tomorrow, not next week, decide to change your mind, and you'll change your life forever. Every single breakthrough in life begins with one realization. The mind is either your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. Most people wake up every day and walk straight in the same loop of thoughts, the same emotions, the same self-talk. They don't even question it. They just call it who I am. But that's not who you are. That's a pattern, a mental program you've repeated so many times it's become automatic. The tragedy is most never stop to see that the door to their cage was never locked. The pattern was. Your mind is like a muscle. It grows in the direction you train it. If you constantly feed it fear, doubt, and limitation, it becomes conditioned to protect you from growth. That's why you hesitate before taking that leap, why you sabotage opportunities, why you keep ending up in the same emotional place no matter what changes on the outside. It's not life holding you back. It's the pattern running your thoughts on autopilot. Men often channel it into pressure. They bury it under the expectation to perform, to provide, to always have control. Women often internalize it. They question their worth, overanalyze, and carry invisible weight trying to be everything for everyone. Different expressions, same prison. Breaking that pattern begins the moment you take responsibility for what's happening inside your head. You must become the observer of your own thinking. To catch that negative loop, the instant it starts whispering, not good enough, or I can't. That's not truth speaking. That's the old identity trying to survive. The mind resists change because it's wired for certainty, even if that certainty is pain. So when you push against your limits, expect resistance. That's not a sign to stop. It's a signal that you're waking up. When you start rewiring your thoughts, you start designing your reality. You can't build a new life with the blueprint of an old mindset. Every time you shift your focus from problems to possibilities, from excuses to execution, you weaken the old circuit and strengthen a new one. Men begin to lead from clarity instead of control. Women begin to rise with confidence instead of comparison. You don't fix your life by forcing the external world to change. You shift who you are internally, and the outer world reorganizes around that. Breaking the pattern is not about erasing fear. It's about mastering your relationship with it. It's learning to use discomfort as your compass, not your cage. Every thought carries energy, and the moment you decide to redirect that energy, from worry to action, from doubt to decision, everything changes. The mind that once trapped you becomes the same mind that frees you. The power has always been there. The question is, are you finally ready to use it? Every person on this planet is living inside a story, a narrative written by their own thoughts, shaped by their past, and repeated until it becomes their truth. The story you tell yourself determines how you think, how you feel, and ultimately how you live. Some people tell stories of power, growth, and possibility. Others tell stories of pain, limitation, and survival. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not their circumstances, but the narrative they've chosen to believe about who they are and what they're capable of. From a young age, you start collecting meanings. A rejection turns into I'm not lovable. A failure turns into I'm not good enough. A setback turns into life is unfair. And before you know it, those moments become paragraphs in a story that defines your identity. For men, that story often becomes a script of pressure. I have to be strong. I can't fail. I can't show weakness. For women, it often becomes a script of worth. I have to prove myself. I have to be perfect. I have to be everything for everyone. These invisible stories quietly shape your choices, your relationships, and your sense of possibility. You're not living reality, you're living your version of it. The truth is your brain is always searching for evidence to support your story. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll see misfortune in every event. If you believe you're not enough, you'll find proof in every criticism or failure. Your mind becomes a storyteller that edits reality to fit the plot you've accepted. That's why you can change your environment, your job, your relationship, and still end up in the same emotional state. You're not changing the story, you're just changing the scenery. The narrative remains untouched, and so the results repeat themselves. The most powerful transformation begins when you realize that you are not the story. You are the storyteller. You have the power to rewrite it. You can choose a new meaning for every experience that once defined you. The heartbreak that broke you can become the strength that shaped you. The failure that embarrassed you can become the fuel that drives you. You can shift from being the victim of your past to the author of your future. But that requires courage, the courage to face your own internal dialogue and say, I've been telling this story for too long and it no longer serves me. For men, rewriting the story often means releasing the mask, allowing themselves to be seen, to feel, to express without shame. It's realizing that strength is not in silence but in self-awareness. For women, it often means reclaiming their voice, detaching worth from perfection and learning to stand in their truth unapologetically. Both journeys require unlearning old beliefs and breaking the emotional patterns that keep them small. The story changes when the identity changes. And the identity changes when you decide to stop repeating the same script. Every word you speak reinforces a direction. When you say, I can't, I'm stuck, I'll never, your subconscious obeys. When you shift to I can, I'm growing, I will, your nervous system begins to follow that new command. Your mind is always listening. What you repeat becomes your reality. The more you tell yourself a story of limitation, the more you'll live within those limits. But when you start telling yourself a story of purpose, of resilience, of strength, the walls begin to fall. You attract people, opportunities, and energy that match the new chapter you've chosen to write. Your life is not a series of random events. It's the expression of the story playing in your mind. Every decision you make, every action you take, every emotion you feel, they're all pages written by your beliefs. The story you tell becomes the life you live, and until you change the narrative, the ending will always be the same. The pen has always been in your hands, it's just been waiting for you to write something new. Every emotion you feel is energy in motion. It's not random, it's not accidental, it's your body's way of communicating what your mind believes. Most people let that energy run wild. They wake up tired, irritated, anxious, and instead of directing that energy, they drown in it. They let anger make decisions, fear dictate choices, and sadness define identity. The problem isn't emotion, it's the lack of control over it. When you learn to master your emotions, you stop being a passenger in your own life and start becoming the driver. The human mind and body are a feedback loop. What you focus on creates emotion, and emotion shapes what you focus on next. It's a cycle that can either empower you or imprison you. If you constantly focus on what's missing, you'll feel frustration. Focus on what's possible and you'll feel drive. Emotion is not an enemy to suppress, it's a signal to interpret. Every emotion is trying to tell you something. Fear is asking for preparation, anger is asking for boundaries, sadness is asking for healing. The power lies in recognizing the message without letting the emotion take the wheel. Men often learn early that emotions are weakness. They're taught to suppress pain, to hide tears, to stay composed no matter what. So they grow into men who explode in silence, emotionally disconnected but physically burdened, carrying stress in their chest and tension in their shoulders. Women, on the other hand, are often told they feel too much, that emotion makes them irrational or unstable. So they shrink their emotional world, apologizing for their sensitivity instead of harnessing it as strength. Both are conditioned to believe emotion is a liability when in truth it's their greatest form of intelligence. When you understand that emotion is just energy, you realize it can be transformed. Anger can become focus. Fear can become alertness. Sadness can become compassion. The same energy that breaks you can build you when directed intentionally. The mind creates the meaning and the meaning fuels the emotion. Change the meaning and the emotional energy shifts instantly. It's not about denying what you feel, it's about choosing how long you live there. You can visit anger without making it your home. You can acknowledge fear without letting it lead your life. That's emotional mastery. Your physiology plays a massive role in emotional control. How you move, breathe, and posture directly affects your emotional state. Try feeling depressed with your shoulders back, head high, and breathing deep. It's nearly impossible. Your body language sends signals to your brain about how to feel. Men who feel powerless can reclaim energy through movement, training, walking, breathing with intention. Women who feel overwhelmed can ground themselves through stillness, conscious breath, calm posture, relaxed focus. The body becomes the gateway to shifting emotional energy from chaos to clarity. Emotion responds to meaning, and meaning is created through focus. What you focus on expands. If you focus on pain, you'll experience more of it. Focus on growth and your energy aligns with progress. Every time you say, I can't handle this, you're programming your nervous system to collapse. Every time you say, I will handle this, you ignite power. The same situation can produce totally different emotions depending on the meaning you attach to it. Emotion isn't permanent, it's a pattern of energy. You have the power to interrupt it, redirect it, and use it to fuel the life you want instead of the life you fear. When you control emotion, you control momentum. Every decision made in frustration leads to regret. Every choice made in clarity leads to progress. Emotion can either drain you or drive you. It depends on who's in command. Men and women who learn to channel emotion stop reacting and start responding. They stop waiting for calm to take action. They create calm through action. Emotion is not the storm, it's the wind. And when you learn to steer it, you can go anywhere you decide. Whatever you focus on grows. It's a law of the mind as real as gravity. Wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. And that energy becomes your reality. Most people don't realize that their focus is being hijacked every day by fear, distraction, and doubt. They're feeding the very problems they want to escape. If you constantly focus on what's missing, you'll live in a state of scarcity. If you constantly focus on what's possible, you'll live in a state of creation. The difference between thriving and merely surviving begins with what you choose to feed your mind. Your brain is like a search engine. It will find evidence for whatever you ask it to look for. Tell it, I'm not enough, and it'll dig through every past failure to prove you right. Tell it, I can grow from this, and it'll uncover strength you didn't know existed. Focus is not passive, it's a decision. You either direct it consciously or surrender it unconsciously. The moment you start paying attention to everything that's broken, everything that's unfair, you give power to what drains you. But when you focus on progress, gratitude, and growth, you start feeding what fools you. Men often channel their focus toward results, achieving, winning, conquering. It's a beautiful strength when it's aligned, but when misdirected, it becomes a trap. They can become obsessed with fixing external problems while ignoring internal fulfillment. They chase success but feel empty because they've been feeding pressure, not purpose. Women, on the other hand, tend to focus on connection, emotion, and meaning. When that focus is in balance, it becomes intuition and empathy. But when it's consumed by comparison or self-doubt, it turns inward into anxiety and exhaustion. Both genders feed their patterns through focus, one through overperformance, the other through overthinking. The challenge is not that they can't focus, but they've been focusing on the wrong things. Focus determines emotion. When you focus on what's out of your control, you feel powerless. When you focus on what you can influence, you feel empowered. The same situation can either destroy you or develop you. Depending on where your focus lands, it's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing which part of reality deserves your energy. You can look at a storm and see danger, or you can see growth. You can look at failure and see an ending, or you can see a lesson. The external world doesn't define your experience. Your internal focus does. Every day you're training your focus like a muscle. If you feed it distraction, it weakens. If you feed it direction, it strengthens. When you wake up and immediately scroll through negativity, you're feeding chaos. When you take a few moments to breathe, reflect, and set an intention, you're feeding clarity. It's not about being positive all the time. It's about being intentional all the time. The mind is neutral. It simply grows what you water. So if you keep watering fear, you'll harvest more of it. But if you water courage, faith, and action, you'll begin to live from a different level of strength. Your focus not only shapes your emotions, but also your identity. You become what you consistently give attention to. A man who constantly focuses on his mistakes becomes hesitant and fearful. A woman who constantly focuses on others' opinions becomes self-conscious and insecure. But the moment they shift focus from what's wrong to what's possible, from doubt to discipline, their energy transforms. Confidence isn't built in a day. It's built through consistent focus on growth. Your identity is simply your repeated focus turned into belief. Energy follows attention. When you focus on problems, you give them power. When you focus on solutions, you give yourself power. When you focus on gratitude, you rewire your brain to see abundance instead of lack. Men who train their focus toward purpose start feeling fulfilled, not just successful. Women who train their focus toward self-worth start feeling free, not just validated. The transformation doesn't happen when the world changes. It happens when the lens through which you see the world changes. Distraction is the enemy of destiny. Every time you lose focus, you lose energy. Every time you feed negativity, you starve potential. Your focus is your currency. Spend it wise while always present noise, chaos, and temptation to drift into fear or frustration. But the power to choose remains in your hands. What you focus on, you feed, and what you feed will eventually feed you, either with strength or with suffering. The choice is made every single moment you decide where to place your attention. Every transformation begins the moment you stop saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I? Those three extra words carry a power that separates those who live trapped by limitation from those who create their own future. I can't is final. It shuts the door, ends the conversation, kills possibility. But how can I opens the mind, ignites creativity, and turns obstacles into strategies. The difference between those two phrases is the difference between a life of reaction and a life of intention. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you live your life. Most people never realize that I can't isn't the truth. It's a habit. It's a mental shortcut that the brain uses to protect you from failure, embarrassment, or discomfort. When you say, I can't, what you really mean is, I'm afraid to try. I don't know how, or I'm not sure I'm enough. But those thoughts aren't facts. They're fears disguised as logic. The moment you shift from I can't to how can I, your brain stops defending your limits and starts searching for solutions. The human mind is built to find answers, but only when you give it a question worth answering. Men often express, I can't, through frustration and avoidance. They'll say, I can't deal with this right now, or I can't show weakness, because they've been conditioned to associate struggle with failure. They bottle it up, distract themselves with work, or push harder without direction. Women often express, I can't, through self-doubt and perfectionism. They'll say, I can't do it unless it's perfect, or I can't take care of myself until everyone else is okay. Both are forms of emotional paralysis. One hides behind pride, the other behind responsibility. But beneath both is the same belief. I don't believe I have what it takes. The moment that belief shifts, everything else follows. Asking, how can I, activates the creative part of the brain that looks for opportunity instead of danger, turns pressure into purpose. When you say, I can't, your brain shuts down. When you say, how can I, it wakes up. Suddenly, what seemed impossible begins to reveal steps, resources, or people that can help you get there. The quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Weak questions drain power. Strong questions create movement. Why does this always happen to me? Keeps you stuck. How can I turn this around? Gives you direction. There's a fundamental difference between being limited and believing you're limited. Limitations are real. We all have them, but belief is a choice. You may not be able to do everything right now, but you can always do something. How can I? Shifts your focus from what you lack to what you can leverage. It changes your internal dialogue from helplessness to hunger. Men who once said, I can't change careers at this age, start asking, how can I use my experience to create something new? Women who said, I can't prioritize myself, begin asking, how can I nurture myself while still caring for others? The question transforms the narrative, and the narrative transforms the outcome. Every major breakthrough in history started with someone asking, how can I? Not someone saying, I can't. Innovation, leadership, and transformation are born from curiosity, not certainty. The moment you ask, how can I? You step into possibility. It forces your mind to stretch, to explore, to adapt. You stop focusing on the walls and start looking for doors. The energy you once used to complain or doubt becomes fuel for creativity and action. I can't creates excuses. How can I creates execution. The words you speak shape the emotions you feel. Every time you repeat, I can't, you reinforce weakness. Every time you say, how can I, you awaken strength. It doesn't mean you'll have all the answers immediately, but it means you're committed to finding them. Men who adopt this mindset stop waiting for perfect plans. They act, adjust, and grow. Women who adopt it stop apologizing for trying. They step forward, experiment, and evolve. The question, how can I, builds confidence through progress, not perfection. Your life expands or contracts based on the language you use. I can't keeps you inside the same story. How can I begins a new one. Every dream you've ever had, every goal you've ever imagined depends on your willingness to ask that one question and mean it. Because the moment you stop focusing on what's stopping you and start focusing on how to move forward, you take back control of your destiny. The problem isn't the obstacle. It's the belief that there's no way around it. How can I? Proves there always is. Every transformation begins with a decision. One real, powerful, no turning back decision. Not a wish, not a hope, not maybe someday. A true decision cuts off every other option. Most people never change because they never actually decide. They flirt with the idea of improvement, but they keep the exit door open. They say they want a new life, a better body, a stronger relationship, a bigger purpose. But inside, they've already given themselves permission to quit when it gets hard. Nothing changes until you decide with absolute certainty that quitting is no longer on the table. A decision without commitment is just a thought. It's the fuel that never reaches the fire. Commitment is what separates those who talk about change from those who create it. The moment you commit fully, your mind begins to organize itself around that outcome. You start thinking differently, moving differently, and attracting what aligns with your new path. Men often struggle with commitment because they equate it with control. They want to know every step before they begin, so they hesitate. Women often struggle with commitment because they tie it to worth. They overthink, they seek permission, they wait to feel ready. But commitment doesn't wait for clarity. It creates clarity through action. Once you've decided and committed, execution becomes the test of truth. Everyone feels motivated in the beginning. It's easy to start. But when the excitement fades, execution is what carries you through. Execution is not about perfection, it's about momentum. The mind will find every excuse to delay. Too busy, too tired, not the right time, but transformation requires relentless follow-through. Every small action repeated with intention rewires your identity. Each time you follow through on your word, you build trust with yourself. And that trust becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. The reason so many people get stuck is because they expect instant results. They confuse effort with outcome. They do the work for a week, a month, maybe two, and when they don't see dramatic change, they retreat. But transformation doesn't reward occasional intensity. It rewards consistent repetition. Change happens slowly, then suddenly. You may not see progress day to day, but every act of discipline compounds into something extraordinary. Men who stay committed even when results are invisible learn the power of delayed gratification. Women who continue to show up even when self-doubt creeps and learn the strength of emotional resilience. Transformation demands repetition because repetition builds identity. The first time you decide to change, it's a spark. The second time, it's a pattern. The third, fourth, fifth time, it becomes who you are. You stop trying to change and start becoming the change. Every repetition reinforces your new standard. You don't need more motivation, you need more repetition, because repetition turns intention into instinct. When you repeatedly act like the person you want to become, eventually you don't have to act anymore. It's simply you. Both men and women often underestimate the emotional endurance that transformation requires. Men are conditioned to push through physically, but not emotionally. They'll keep grinding even when mentally exhausted, eventually burning out because they never address the internal resistance. Women, on the other hand, carry emotional awareness but often let self-judgment slow them down. They question if they're doing enough, being enough, or moving fast enough. But transformation doesn't care about speed, it cares about direction. The secret is to keep showing up even when the mind screams to stop. That's when real change begins, when you push through the resistance that wants to find you. Decide who you will be, commit like your life depends on it, execute with relentless consistency, and repeat till the old version of you no longer exists. The repetition is what dissolves fear, builds mastery, and creates transformation. Every time you repeat the process, your mind gets stronger, your emotions more stable, your purpose clearer. Men find power not through control, but through consistency. Women find freedom not through perfection, but through persistence. The transformation isn't one grand event. It's a series of daily decisions, commitments, and executions stacked on top of each other until your new reality becomes undeniable. When you live by this pattern, decide, commit, execute, repeat, you stop chasing change and start embodying it. You stop waiting for permission, validation, or the perfect moment. You realize that the transformation you've been searching for was never hidden from you. It was waiting for you to show up over and over again until the repetition became your new identity.